Hello and welcome along to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. The winning run continues. Phil, I'm so glad after last week's episode when we titled it, Will We Stop Winning? We're not coming on here discussing anything other than a win because I definitely felt the pressure after putting that out. We are, of course, live here on the YouTube channel as well, scheduled slightly later time of 7:45, which we might look at going forward as it avoids clashing with other Don's content out there. And it's an action-packed show as well, Phil. We'll be looking back at that victory over Dundee, reviewing the latest news from around Pittodrie before previewing the game against Hearts at the weekend. So, what was your initial thoughts after that victory at the weekend?
Yeah, I think afterwards it was mainly relief more than anything. At the end of that game, but yeah, like we say, the winning run continues. I think we would have been targeted men at Pittodrie. Had it all came crashing down after last week's episode. Really pleased that it's continued and continue our push for the title.
Yeah, and I think what you said there as well, it wasn't necessarily the prettiest of victories, but probably not the first time this season. Maybe Ross County had glimpses of it as well. When we've not been at our best, we've still found a way to win, and I think that's a huge confidence boost for the players, for us as fans, but also a huge difference of where this team's come from over the last 2-3 seasons. Because for me, certainly during times of Saturday's second half, I felt there was a sense of inevitability about Dundee scoring. However, the players on the pitch obviously didn't have that sense of inevitability and really were putting their bodies on the line where it mattered. And thankfully, we held on for what could be a huge 3 points.
Yeah, no, it was like you say, it was a gritty win. Really had to dig in at times. So, and I think, like we were saying last week, I think we kind of needed something like that in a way, just to kind of really help benchmark where we are as a team, but also maybe try and keep the likes of you and me a bit grounded. I know a few of the comments last week were about how maybe overly eager we were, and try not to get too carried away. But I mean, you could see it. I mean, we'll come and speak about it later on, but you could see how much it meant to the players that they managed to kind of grind out that win. And you've got to win the tough games and the ugly games, and especially if you are wanting to be serious about a season. We're not going to go in and blitz everybody 3-4-0. No team that's putting on any sort of push for a European spot's going to win every game an absolute landslide.
Yeah, and I thought you were a way to say it in terms of mounting a title challenge, but I think, even if you want to be up at the business end of any league table, you've got to be winning games ugly and winning them. And as top strikers T says, great teams win in all circumstances, and that's what counts at the end of the day. I think Aberdeen are becoming a great team, able to win in any circumstances, and we're showing that. Obviously, we had changes to the team from previous games. Pape Habib Gay didn't have any involvement in the matchday squad. Pape was having a consultation for the injury he picked up. No kind of news on what injury that is, Phil. Toby Keskinen replaced him in the starting lineup. But on Pape, from what I've been told, and this will probably wind up all the right people on AFC chat, he is facing at least 4 weeks out. Hopefully that scan that he's going for today reveals maybe a lesser time on that, but October was always kind of being set as the benchmark month for this Aberdeen squad in terms of our test, in inverted commas. Did we show signs of missing Pape at the weekend?
I think a little bit. I'm not too sure, in hindsight, now the game's been and gone.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure it would have been a game that potentially would have suited him as much. I found we're struggling to get on the ball at times a little bit. And I think, he's the type of player that does kind of like to get his foot on the ball a little bit and try and link the play. Although, as good as he is in the channel, I think sort of having Tope in that role worked a bit better in that case. But no, a bit like you, from what I've heard from somebody that bumped into him at Union Square, it looks like a wrist injury, I think. So read into that what you will. And also, maybe take with a pinch of salt to send the forms a bit mental. But But yeah, no, I think it's a weird one saying that, if he is going to be out for 4 weeks, we are going to maybe miss Pape Gay, which seems like an absurd sentence to be saying right now.
It,
Um,
it it does, but I guess when you have Topi Keskinen to come in off the bench, and that's something we spoke about last week. Martin Davidson saying that Keskinen is a fantastic player. This is why you spend the money. You go out and get a player that will improve your squad, will enhance your squad, and maybe Saturday again, going on your view of hindsight, might not have suited Pape. The musical box saying he thought we lacked the sharpness Pape showing, and I think there was times where we didn't look as fluid up top. I thought the first half an hour we were especially very good. But yeah, maybe that physical battle and giving us that little bit of height to hold up, because I don't think maybe that's really Nisbet's kind of strength, as we've discussed before. That's kind of a point Graham Gibbs talking about there. Missed Pape jumping with their centre backs. Definitely an out ball, second half especially.
yeah,
But we managed to adapt and overcome. The other change to the starting lineup saw Captain Graham Shinnie return into that centre of midfield, replacing Ante Palaversa. Again, we discussed that last week. I have to admit, though, I was surprised to see that change. I don't know about you.
yeah. I think just with him obviously missing out the week before, wasn't sure if there were still going to be signs of an injury there, and sort of how fully fit he would be. But again, the hindsight of how the game actually played out, because I don't know about you, but it didn't play out the way I maybe thought it was going to play out. I thought it was a bit more
Yeah.
frantic at times, and I think again in hindsight, I think that suited Shinnie a little bit, having that sort of buzz in the middle when it did kind of get a little bit scrappy and there was some bouncing balls, and you needed somebody that was just kind of, like I say, that sort of fly that was buzzing about and causing a little bit of havoc. I think kind of suited us at times, and I thought you slotted in pretty well. I've been kind of very vocal in singing Palaversa's praises.
Mm.
But I think Shinnie did look good there. Although I do feel Palaversa should have probably came on a bit earlier than what he did, in my opinion. But
Yeah, it's funny because I actually thought we missed Palaversa. Kind of hearing your thoughts on that and Shinnie thriving in that buzzing around the midfield. I felt at times during the game on Saturday we needed that almost calming figure of Palaversa just to get his foot on the ball and provide that quality pass, because certainly second half I felt there was too much times we either tried too hard or kept possession too long. I just felt once he came on there was a little bit of that quality into the midfield. Obviously Graham Shinnie was still on at the same time, but there was a little bit of kind of tactical nous, which I guess we'll kind of talk about in terms of the game management as the second half wore on. But in terms of the first half, like we've seen in most games so far for Aberdeen, it's that opening half hour where we really look to hurt our opponents. And once again, we took advantage of that in the opening half hour, scoring two really excellent goals.
yeah, and it was really direct transitional football. Probably really what we all kind of expected from that sort of style that we thought Jimmy was going to bring. I think we've maybe seen us on the ball a lot more than what people predicted, and I think that transitional play really did cause Dundee the problems. It was a big hoof up for the first one from Basse hoof. It was a very deliberate pass up into the channel, and
Mm.
fair play to Topi as well for gambling on the fact that that the defender could fumble it and being sharp enough to be lightning off the mark. And a great pullback and a great finish from Nisbet. Really proving that his statement was true. If he gets the ball in the box, he'll put them away.
In terms of the goal, as you say, excellent work from Topi, and the desire and awareness to take advantage of the mistake, but also the awareness to put his head up and find Kevin Nisbet, and it was the weight of the pass. It was there for Kevin to run onto. And for me, the best bit about the goal was the finish itself. It was the composure to stroke it home. The laces weren't put through it. He wasn't trying to hit it hard as he could into the top corner. He knew that he wanted just to caress that ball into the bottom corner. And McCracken was left standing and watching as the thousands of fans behind this goal went wild.
Yeah, I mean, Tope was a player that really impressed, I think, everybody on Saturday. But it was really good to see that end product from them, because I think it's something I've been a little bit sort of not concerned, because again, it's not a concern, but one thing I've maybe been a little bit critical on is maybe being his end product and his sort of decision making when he gets into the final third. I find that sometimes he can either be a little bit too selfish at times and try and take everybody on, or, like I say, just picks out the wrong pass. But I thought, that was really quite polished of him on Saturday. For the second goal, it was maybe lucky for his own sake that it went in, because I think Nisbet would have probably been at his throat. But yeah, no, the first goal to have the sort of awareness to perfectly ping it back to Nisbet coming in at the edge was really good.
But you've just kind of led me perfectly into that second goal and some of the points you've made, because I saw some of the debate this afternoon on Twitter about was Topi too selfish for the second goal? It was lucky that he scored because he should have squared it. Whether he should have squared it or not, maybe it was a better option. But what I liked about it was he still had the confidence and belief in his own ability. If you're a Dundee fan, you're absolutely raging that your keeper doesn't save that, in my mind. But on the Nisbet point, the way Kevin then goes and celebrates with Topi, there's no, oh, he should have squared it to me. It's just pure joy that Topi's gone and got his first goal in the Premiership for Aberdeen. And again, that unity and togetherness from the squad was what I almost took from it as well. And yes, we might have got a little bit lucky with the finish that keeper doesn't cover himself in glory. But again, a simple through ball, and again, we're aware we're on top of that situation, and Dundee couldn't cope.
Yeah, again, it's that sort of transitional football, winning it sort of at the halfway line, a touch, look up and a ball in. A lot of teams will struggle with that. Pretty much every team will struggle with that. You look around. I think obviously the Sky Sports panel were making the same sort of point that transitional football results in goals. All the big teams play transitional football when they can. So yeah, no, another good goal. And like you say, I think it's a testament to the squad, the fact that there was no animosity on the back of it. But I also think it's a testament to the confidence that Jimmy has kind of instilled in these players to back their own abilities. And we've seen it with Papagay that if a player is confident, that their ceiling's almost non-existent, to the point where you feel like they could just go on and do anything. So really pleased that Topi put in that performance with the goal and the assist, because it will do him a world of wonders. And I'm hoping that is just, like I say, him kicking on a little bit and maybe putting my criticisms to the back of my mind when it comes to his end product.
But I think from that second goal especially, there's positive debate and conversation to be had around it. There's not really a negative or criticism from it, as I say, obviously because of the fact it resulted in a goal. David McLennan saying he's got no problems with players taking on a chance and having a go. Phil, both of us have been on here speaking about that exact same thing, that we would rather see players taking it on rather than playing the perfect pass and trying to walk the ball into the net. Graham Gibbs saying he wants the winger to scare the retreating defender. Watching the game back, it was a very small window to thread that through to Kevin Nisbet. Perfect point from Graham, because had Topi tried to play the pass and it got cut out, we'd be sitting here berating him for not going on and taking the chance. But also Dundee pointing out Dundee keeper was in two minds. Thinks Topi's playing it to Nisbet again until it's too late. And I think also we probably need to credit Kevin Nisbet for that run, because it distracts a couple of the Dundee defenders. I think it was Clark Robertson was in a bit of two minds on where to go. And also John McCracken's got to cover for that ball coming across, which left the space for Topi to blast the ball towards. And yeah, John McCracken couldn't get his foot out over there. The musical box speaking about Topi obviously getting the move to Aberdeen, and maybe is a bit overconfident coming to Aberdeen, getting that big move in his first Finland call-up as well. But confidence is running through him, and thankfully for us, it's benefiting as well. I think for me, the biggest disappointment, I guess, in inverted commas, from that first half was how much we almost kind of, I don't know if switched off's the right word, Phil, but kind of would lost control almost be right as well? It just seemed we really dropped a lot of tempo and allowed Dundee quite easily back into the game for the last 15 minutes of that first half.
Yeah, it was a strange one because typically from what we've seen, it would be more of a reason to kind of put the boot down a little bit and really just keep on taking the game to them. I would hope it isn't the case, but I mean, I felt we looked quite laggy quite early on. Really,
Hmm.
it sort of comes back to a point I was saying earlier. I kind of thought Palaversa should have been on a bit earlier than he was. I just felt we looked a little bit tired at times. I don't think that was really helped in the fact that, at least in my opinion, now I'm no UEFA licensed coach. Jimmy will know far more about football than me, but Dundee didn't really play the way that I thought they were going to. It wasn't just a case of they've gone two down, the heads have dropped, and then they're just punting it long. There was actual, try to get the ball through the midfield through Lyle Cameron, getting the ball out wide to Scott Tiffany. And I don't know if that maybe took us by a bit of surprise to think,
Yeah.
they're just going to be humping it long, so we'll get a little bit of respite whilst Ruby heads everything out. And that kind of comes back to the point I was making about Shinnie, where I found it got a little bit frantic and a little bit buzzy in the midfield. And again, it was something, I don't know if that maybe just took us off guard slightly.
But I think it also kind of goes back to a little bit of the kind of points that we were speaking about from the preview of Dundee, where we spoke about the fact that they concede sloppy goals. And I think if you're a Dundee fan doing a review of this game, you'll be disappointed in both goals that you conceded. But we also spoke about how they have that kind of determination to fight back and find a way back into games, especially at home at Dens Park. Unfortunately, from our point of view, we kind of did that for them, a little bit of shooting ourselves in the foot. But in terms of that kind of like 15 minutes before half time, I want to pick up on a point from Martin Davidson, where he says, "What on earth did Helton Nielsen have on his boots? He spent half the game on his backside." And it was Kevin Nisbet early in the first half before grabbing the goal, changed his boots. I did feel a few of our players were kind of slipping, and for Dens Park, I think it has to be praised, the pitch. I thought the surface was in excellent condition, but there was a sense that some of the players were a bit unsure in their footing throughout, not just that first half, but second half as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, the shout from you and next to me was for them to get medals on, because we were all kind of the same opinion that everybody just seemed so unsteady. Don't know if it was an overwatered pitch or, like I say, the players just had the wrong boots on. But yeah, it was strange to see so many of them just decking it. And again, I think it probably did help Dundee kind of grow back into the game a little bit, despite being 2-0 down, because it did allow them to create chances. Like I say, it allowed Lyle Cameron, Simon Murray all kind of get their foot on the ball a little bit.
Yeah, and that the likes of Simon Murray, Lyle Cameron, that they're not going to give up. They're not going to put their heads down, as you said. I don't really remember, though, as much as, Tony Doherty came out of the game and spoke about the better team losing. I don't really necessarily agree with that. You probably agree that Dundee might have deserved something from the game, but for all their possession, I never felt they really tested Mitov. He only had one pretty good save to make in the first half. And then, as I said, it was our own kind of poor defending that let Dundee back into that game. Gavin Malloy kind of really, for me, was at fault. Kaiser picking up Ruby, where he said, Big Ruby has to Kakani keep his position, woeful defending for the penalty. I kind of more felt it was on Malloy. I thought it was a poor back header. And thankfully, his saving grace was bringing Simon Murray down within the box, meaning the double jeopardy rule see them only pick up a yellow card as opposed to a red card if he'd taken Simon Murray down outside of the penalty area.
Yeah, like you say, I think if you just look at the stats, you're going to come away thinking that Dundee were the better team. Fuck mobs, where I'm taking my information from, but more possession, more accurate passes, more shots on target, more XG. That comes back to that age-old adage of stats being like mini skirts for all the possession and the expected goals and whatnot. I didn't really feel like they were creating too many clear-cut chances. They weren't getting defined one-on-ones and there was usually a body in the way or a shot going through a few players. I didn't really think they were getting in behind an awful lot. Majority of their chances were sort of coming from set pieces, or the odd sort of like say half chance from like say, Tiffany or Murray. The penalty, I'm with you. I think it's more on Malloy. I don't know if it was a bit of an experience or maybe a poor shout from somebody, where he's kind of thought that taking that header on was a good idea. But like I say, I would rather he would have taken him down than just given him a free shot and goal there. But outside that penalty, I didn't really see Dundee scoring. I think if they didn't get the penalty, I think it would have probably ended 2-0 in my opinion. But yeah, like you say, it was a bit frustrating, I think, to give it away when we did, as well. Just as Dundee were starting to slightly find their feet a little bit.
Yeah, it just gave them a little bit of confidence going into half time and just maybe put a few nerves through the away end. And Paul Donaldson commenting on it, saying he thinks Malloy was maybe slightly unlucky with a penalty. The way he looked up, the ball was already over his head and behind him before he realised where it was. And I guess, yeah, you can kind of see that on the highlights on Sports Scene. I almost felt actually watching it back on Sports Scene, had Malloy not taken Simon Murray out, the shot was probably going straight at Dimitar Mitov anyway. But look, it's not come back to haunt us or anything. On the referee as well, though, I don't know about you, Phil, because I know you were a bit more inebriated than I was at the weekend. I thought throughout the first half he had some quite shocking calls, really kind of high levels of inconsistency. The one that stuck out for me was where Jamie McGrath went down with a head injury, kind of looked back, decided to play on. Topi Keskinen was hauled down, and then instead of giving a free kick, which I don't think he was going to do anyway, despite Leighton Clarkson almost stopping, decided to go back and check that Jamie McGrath was actually okay.
Yeah, it was. I don't even know who was actually the referee. Again, I'm going to
Callum
blame the
Scott, I
alcohol.
believe it was.
Not one that I can ever really think of.
And there's been a few new referees starting over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like I say, I just felt it was a bit. I think it was the inconsistency more than anything. You would maybe see somebody getting hauled back in the middle, nothing given, and then maybe the same thing going on whilst Dundee hit the ball under pressure in the defensive half and immediately blowing. It was some of them just felt like kind of cheap get out of jail fouls at some points, but yeah, overall I was with you. I thought it was a bit poor for the most part.
Yeah. Before we go into the second half, obviously for those of us that were at Dens Park at the weekend will have known that kind of halftime felt even longer than usual. There was obviously a bit of a, I don't know how to word it, unfortunate, unsavoury incident where Mo Silla fell ill at halftime. I was sitting at the kind of side of the stand towards the tunnel and saw the fourth official kind of rushing in a couple of paramedics. And I think just before kind of the teams were due out, there was a lot of activity with Dundee staff rushing a stretcher down. So there was a sense kind of within the stand that something serious was going on. News coming out today from Dundee that Mo Silla suffered an anaphylactic shock, but thankfully is doing okay and is on the road to recovery. So I think, as much as we're on here to speak about Aberdeen in a positive light, it's never nice to see something like that happen, Phil. And I think both of us will just be glad that Mo's actually doing all right, because I think he was a player that Dundee missed massively in that second half. He was a player that impressed me last season in the games against us, and was just really impressed me in that first 45 minutes, the way he was kind of disrupting our midfield as well. So yeah, just glad that he's hopefully on the way to making a full recovery.
Yeah, no, definitely echoing that. And like you say, I thought it was strange. I saw a lot of people on Twitter sort of saying that he looked like he'd be a weaker link for Dundee, but I was like, yeah, I thought he was really quite composed in the middle, and really sort of gave our two holding midfielders a good battle. So no, yeah, really hope that it's all well for him and he's back on the pitch soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed there. On to the second half then. I kind of spoke about game management and the way the second half panned out. I felt the second half probably went the way I expected, with Dundee getting that goal late on in the first half. It was more Dundee pressure than Aberdeen pressure, but I thought we dealt with it on the large part very well.
Yeah, again, like I said not long ago, I didn't really think they were getting sort of any clear cut chances, which is always good, especially when you're under the cosh a little bit. Still kind of limit them to half chances was pretty good. I did feel at times I think we just got a little bit deep and didn't really want to come out from that, which in my opinion, always kind of leads to a little bit of a miserable and stressful passage of football. And like I say, I think we really could have used the subs a bit earlier. I do think we looked a little bit leggy, and that's probably maybe why we weren't coming out and pressing as high. Because I especially thought our front players looked a little bit dead on their feet at times.
Yeah, Miller S commenting about the midfield battle. Yeah, goes on to say, feel like we lost the midfield for large parts of the second half. Not sure if it was, in inverted commas, game management or not. And for me, in that kind of sense of losing the midfield battle, it was that out ball. I felt that we were sloppy in the possession. We had no real kind of control, and when we were trying to look to maybe spring a counter attack, it was the wrong pass, or we got to a certain place on the Dundee half and then passed back. It didn't kind of seem right almost. But look, small kind of critiques, I guess. But I think for me, we're not here sitting criticizing what happened. I think this is more a PTSD that is ingrained in the Aberdeen support from the last 2 years, that part of us can't accept that we're doing so well right now. And the other part is we're so accustomed to things going absolutely tits up that we're expecting it to happen in the way that the game on Saturday was going. I think the expectation was it might have turned at that point.
Yeah, and I think we've said it before this season on the podcast that last season at 2-1 in this game, that would have been 2 points dropped, if not three.
Yeah.
I think we would have really struggled to sort of keep the composure that we did. And a player that impressed us, and I think everybody was Nicky Devlin, and we'll maybe talk about him a little bit. I think between him and Meatov really did kind of keep that backline really composed for the second half, in my opinion. I think didn't really let panic seep in. A lot of really good sort of clearances at the back post to stop somebody running in on a really good ball in. So yeah, the pair of them I think really did kind of help keep those 3 points really, especially like I say Mitov as well with that save from Scott Tiffany was not until seeing it back I didn't actually realise how good a save it was. So yeah, really big props to the two of them for keeping the composure.
Yeah, and that Scott Tiffany effort was probably the best chance Dundee had in the second half. And I, like you, was absolutely raging that was awarded a corner because I didn't think Dimitar Mitov got a touch to it, as I said, until watching it back and realising that it was actually an outstanding save to get probably his pinky to that and push it round the post, and just adds to the string of saves and key moments he's had already for us this season, just trying to kind of think how many points he's kept us from losing already at this point. It's not about necessarily just winning ugly, but key players producing in key moments, and that was definitely one of them. But as you say, and aside from that, I don't really remember Dundee doing anything overly serious where I thought, oh, for fuck's sake, that's going to end up in the back of the net. But you're right, Nicky Devlin, I thought absolutely outstanding. Dan D commenting about Devlin probably gets his man of the match, decent going forward in the first half and winning everything at the back in the second. Obviously, Graham Shinney was absent for a few games. Nicky Devlin picked up the captain's armband, didn't have it for this weekend, but an inspiring performance that inspired the rest of the back line as well. And as you say, he was just kind of everywhere. And for me, a player that we kind of spoke about at the start of the season that we need backup for him. He's not going to last the full games, but he almost feels a little bit like a Duracell bunny in games. A player you shouldn't expect to still have that levels of energy come the latter stages of the game, but yeah, it defies belief.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really highlighted just how fit and sharp Dickie Devlin still looked at whatever minute it was in the game was the fact that I think Ambrose came on at the 82nd minute, and Devlin looked like he was probably going to run faster than him up the wing. So a real credit to Devlin for a player that we thought was maybe going to need rotation for the legs being on the older variety, kind of proving us wrong here.
Yeah, no, definitely on that as well. Let's speak about the subs and the game management. There was only 3 minutes of injury time at the end of the game. Now, I think most of us at the game were in disbelief that there was only 3 minutes added on. I know the Dundee bench in particular were added on. And I found out this weekend that it's not actually the referee and fourth official that come up with the injury time. It's actually the VAR. So much so that the fourth official actually had to confirm that 3 minutes was the correct amount of added time they wanted on. I was just relieved that that's what they decided, because I was, adamant it was going to be at least 5-6 minutes of injury time, especially when, we made 4 subs. The Dundee substitutions at one of their corners seemed to take 5 minutes alone. But yeah, I think we maybe got a bit lucky there with the injury time. Our first sub, as we spoke about, Ante Palaversa coming on for Jamie McGrath. He kind of added a little bit of stability to the midfield. I thought between him and Mitov, there was a game management, or Balkan bastardry, as I was going to call it, with the phantom cramp appearing with Dimitar Mitov. And well, I was going to call it a dive from Ante Palaversa, but there was definitely a slight touch, but he was very theatrical in going down and winning a free kick on the halfway line as well. Just kind of key ways to kill the game and slow it down from certain players, which at the right time was very much needed under some of the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times we've said it that, sometimes you need a good shithouse in the team, especially when games do get, a little bit under pressure. So yeah, I think it was much needed. I was kind of surprised to see Palaversa coming on for McGrath. I thought that he was maybe going to come on for Clarkson. As much as I thought Clarkson was playing well, I think he was getting quite frustrated. I think he was picking up the ball and looking for somebody ahead of him, and just there was never the out ball there. So I thought maybe that to shoot up the midfield and just go with a flat 3 was maybe going to be the play. But like I say, I think no matter who came on, I think the change was maybe needed 5-10 minutes earlier. So like I said, I thought it was getting away from us a little bit.
Yeah, there was a few folk behind me at the game getting a bit ants in the pants that the subs hadn't been coming. It was the first time I kind of felt there was any sort of disgruntlement under the Jimmy Thelin era. The second change saw Peter Ambrose replace Kevin Nisbet. I think a surprise change, more so for those of us in the stands rather than in the management. A change you saw coming?
Not really. I thought it would have been Sockler. I was maybe in the minority that was a bit surprised it wasn't Duke. I know obviously it was his first day back in the matchday squad. But I felt like it was maybe the sort of period of the game that might have suited him. He's that sort of good combination of sort of pace and a little bit of strength. So I thought maybe he was going to come on to sort of corner flag it in a sense and just chase balls into the channel. But yeah, I thought Ambrose, I think he is a bit raw. I think he did struggle a little bit. Well, a tad maybe. I think every week we're pretty much going to be probably saying the same thing, that he needs a loan somewhere just to kind of get that football under his belt.
Yeah, get him sent to Norway or MLS2 immediately, because the redemption arcs we've seen when we've loaned players out in those directions has been phenomenal. And it's easy for us to sit here and criticise a player, which I'm pretty sure we want to sit and do around Peter Ambrose. But I think we also have to be mindful that he is a project signing. He is a signing that is a work in progress, to put it politely, and probably wasn't a substitution many of us expected in that game. And I think also plays back to that point I was speaking about earlier in terms of that PTSD that when a player comes on in a tight game and doesn't kind of perform to the standard as fans are expecting, they become an easy target. I think in the grand scheme of things, look, we've still come away with 3 points. Had we dropped points, or certainly taken one from the weekend, there would be a lot more focus on that performance substitution. For me, the kind of strange thing about that was the fact that Esther Stokler didn't get any minutes. We haven't seen Peter Ambrose coming on to lead the line. We've normally seen him coming on for a Leighton Clarkson or a Keskin in the sense of coming out and playing on the wing. The concerning part for me around the substitution was if Peter Ambrose was being brought on to use his pace, we didn't see it at all, as you've already highlighted in terms of the comparison to Nicky Devlin.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you say, I think part of it, especially for me, I'm probably speaking for a few other people as well, was that I think the frustration of how nervy it was getting, sort of almost feeling like we're clinging on, was then just being channeled into a frustration that, every time the ball went up, it just didn't seem to stick and it was just putting us under more pressure. But yeah, no, I'm a bit like you. I thought as an out-and-out striker, you're probably looking at Sockler in that sense. He's been proven that he's not awful at holding the ball up. He's relatively quick on his feet. He's got good movement. And, much to, as we said the other week, our surprise of already making 50 appearances in the league, he's someone that's used to playing in Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. And I can only assume, rightly or wrongly, of course, that Esther maybe was struggling with a knock or an injury, and that's why he didn't get on, because I would have thought he would have been the obvious substitute to come on and lead the line. Duke, I kind of wasn't expecting him to feature. It would have been nice to see him. I think it was nice that he got a largely positive reception on the whole, it seemed. I didn't kind of hear or see any negativity towards his involvement.
I think the issue there is that boos sound a lot like Duke. So,
Yeah.
Regardless, it's going to sound great.
Yeah, that's true as well. But I think it's also been spoken about in the replies on Twitter as well, that the likes of Shaden Morris and Vinny Bazowin have, at least turned up on time for pre-season and have shown enough to merit a place ahead of him. And obviously we saw that later on when both of those players came on, replacing Topi Keskin and Leighton Clarkson. I have to say I was surprised that Topi lasted so long, because I thought he was breathing out his arse after the back of an hour, but he still gave his all. Final couple of things on Ambrose. Graham Gibbs speaking about the clearance he had from a corner, which does kind of ring a bell. Maybe that's why he came on, to give us that little bit of height and presence at defending the balls into the box that Dundee were doing. And Colin Gale pointing out as well, of course, Peter Ambrose only having featured for a few minutes now and again, maybe needs a solid run. Don't think we'll see that, unfortunately, anytime soon, Colin. But also goes on to say, remember, Gay and Morris, let's not make Peter the next target. As I said, I don't really think he's necessarily being set as a target. I think, Phil, you've kind of touched on it. It's that frustration from the game where it was tense, it was nervy as it was getting into the final stages, and every time the ball was going up to Peter, it just wasn't sticking, or his touch wasn't there. Similar, I guess, what we saw with Pape last season. And it's just that pressure that comes. We want to see that winning run continue and keep that feel-good factor going. And I don't think any player wants to be the player that necessarily lets that run down. So, like I said, it's just highlighted a little bit more, but it's not cost us at the end of the day. It just becomes a little bit of a talking point for the likes of ourselves.
Exactly. Like we said, I think a loan for Peter will do him the world of good. I think that's one way he's going to get that sort of solid run of games under his belt.
Yeah, and of course, from kind of some of the interviews as well, maybe still trying to pick up the language, pick up the pace of the play as well. But we've said it before, we've said it for seasons gone by, the only way players learn is by getting minutes under their belt as well. But look, as we said, it didn't cost us. The full-time scene saw the Dons proudly sit at the top of the table, collecting 18 points from 18. A nice 16 points ahead of the weekend's visitors and bottom of the table, Heart of Midlothian. And again, Phil, just quickly touching on those full-time scenes, just the unity and togetherness from the fans, both behind the goal and in that main stand, along with the players and coaching staff. Just great to see once again.
Yeah, no, it was lovely, and I think you could see as well how much the players all appreciated staying out to thank the travelling support. I think the thing for me that I just absolutely loved was Meatov's reaction at full time. Again, I think probably he knew as well that he'd potentially once again saved us some points with his performance. But yeah, seeing him, Ruby, Topi, and Devlin all kind of sprinting and celebrating with each other, and it just really shows that togetherness within the squad, and then obviously aided by those of us in the stadium that were singing all of their praises, as much as the security guard in front of the goal was trying to stop Ruby from taking his photo.
Yeah, and I think that was the good thing to see as well at the weekend was that backing that the support gave to the players, because despite the tension and the nerves that were maybe kind of sneaking in, the noise and the level of support kind of grew as the time wound down, and that maybe just gave the players that extra energy boost as well. And I'm sure, well, by all accounts, another big crowd expected at Pittodrie this season, and I'm sure it's another excellent atmosphere awaits the team when kickoff comes around on Sunday.
Yeah, no, from what I've seen on Twitter of the tickets that are left at Pittodrie on Sunday, it looks like it's, yeah, like you say, it's going to be a really good support. You know, hopefully the game's maybe a little bit less tense, so we can all kind of enjoy the moment of potentially going, what would it be, 19 points clear of Hearts with still a game in hand. So yeah, I think if that's the case at full time, I think the atmosphere and potentially the seethe from the other side of the fence would be would be one for the ages, I think.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, let's have a look at the other news before we go on to discuss the weekend's fixture. And probably the best place to start is on the back of the weekend's victory over Dundee, where news was officially kind of made that Peter Leaven had turned down the approach of St Johnstone to become their next manager. The club gave Peter permission to speak to St Johnstone, and he was interviewed, but he decided to turn down the opportunity and continue working under Jimmy Thelin, citing the Swedish manager as a main reason for staying at the club. I think, for me, I'm delighted Peter's chosen to stay at the club. Because I think there's no secret that his name is going to pop up for these managerial positions, but St Johnstone was never going to be the right club for him, in my personal opinion.
No, you know, as good as he was with us last season, picking up when we were kind of in the shit, I think willingly jumping to a sinking ship when you're, you know, part of a backroom staff that's, you know, helping Aberdeen soar up the league. I just don't really think it's really of his caliber, you know, and I think that's the main thing. I think all of us want to see Peter go on to become a first team coach for somebody. We would probably just rather that it was
here.
somebody that, well, I do, yes, exactly, someday. But you know, because again, none of us begrudge Peter getting these opportunities, because all of us know how good of a manager that he is, and I think it's only right of the club to allow him the opportunities to speak to clubs that do approach. Because I think he really is, you know, from what we've sort of seen and the odd interaction we've had and whatnot, he really is the type of guy that I think has his head screwed on. He kind of knows where he wants to be, where he wants to go, and I think he's really good at making that judgment call on what, you know, should the opportunity come, what would be the right one for him. So yeah, not really surprised he's turned that one down.
Yeah, and it was good to see that there was a really kind of loud reception for him as he made his way back to the dugout at the start of the second half as well. And I'm sure he massively appreciated that as well. So, no, good to see Peter continuing his stint with the Dons as well. In other news from Pittodrie as well, we saw the third kit being announced this week, the Granite kit. Yet another kit for fans who want to purchase all kits. To do so. Thoughts on the kit in general?
Yeah, I mean, at first I wasn't too keen on it, but it's grown on me a little bit. I'm going to probably say it's the the old style badge that's
Yeah.
that's getting me going. I think that's probably the same for most people. But yeah, it does a job. It's again, it's another kit. Preferred it. Like my friend pointed out, it looked much nicer when you went onto the name set version on the website.
Mm.
And I feel like it looked better with a name on the back than just the sort of almost looked like a blank stock template. But yeah, it's grown on me slowly and surely, as every kit this season has so far.
Yeah, I mean, I know a few people are going to point out the necessity for a third kit, let alone the price of the kit as well. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in nowadays. Of course, we're fast approaching yet another international break, which comes after this weekend's fixtures, unfortunately. But positives in terms of Don's involvement, Dimitar Mitov and Slobodan Rubišić both called up to their respective national teams. Of course, as I said, we're recording this live on YouTube on Monday night, so I'm sure and hope for other players there are also further call-ups. I'm sure Jamie McGrath's battering down the door of the Irish head coach for a call-up, but let's be honest, I'm sure there'll be a few of us that hope he doesn't get called up and is afforded a week's rest as well. And finally, Phil, we also got news today of some upcoming fixture changes. Those fixture changes are now all confirmed right up until the new year, barring the weekend of the 14th, 15th of December, which is, of course, the League Cup final weekend. So 2 changes to 2 home games, which were already in place both on Wednesday the 30th of October and Wednesday the 4th of December. Those are our 2 home games against Rangers and Celtic respectively. The kickoff times have been moved back by 15 minutes, so it'll be 8 o'clock kickoffs live on Sky Sports. And the week after our trip to Hampden, we have another 5:30 kickoff as the home game against Dundee has been moved at the request of both clubs to 5:30. And it'll be 2 trips to your current residence, Edinburgh, as our match against Hibernian, scheduled originally for the 2nd of November, has been moved to a midweek, 26th of November, 7:45 kickoff. No TV selection for that one. And our away trip to Tynecastle on the 1st of December, already scheduled for the 1st of December due to Hearts' involvement in Europe, has now been picked up by Premier Sports for a 3 o'clock kickoff. So I guess I forgot what it's like when you're performing at the right end of the league. You get picked up for TV a lot more.
I know. Who would have thought it? I mean, I'm more just dreading trying to get over the other side of Edinburgh at the end of November whilst the Christmas market's on. That is just filling me with dread already. But yeah, and I think the one that's the tastiest for me is the 5:30 against Dundee. I know a lot of people maybe begrudge a 5:30 on a Saturday, but yeah, for obvious reasons, it's a pleasure for myself.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that one as well. And as I said, obviously back-to-back 5:30 kickoffs as well. So yeah, just those to look forward to. And of course, as I said, depending of course on that weekend's semi-final results, we could also see a fixture change happen the week before Christmas as well. So let's look at the game this weekend, Phil, as winless, bottomless, Heart of Midlothian travel to Pittodrie as the Dons try to make it 13 out of 13. Will it be 13th time lucky for Aberdeen?
Well, not to tempt fate here. 13's my lucky number. I have it tattooed on me. So, I'm not trying to tempt fate here, but for me, it's a lucky number. I don't know how much that is for others. But yeah, I mean, from what I've seen of Hearts this season and dribs and drabs on Sports Scene and whatnot,
yeah,
they don't appear to have, a lot of quality about them just now. They don't appear to have a lot of confidence. I'm quite happy that it seems like they're not going to get a new manager bounced by us as well, because that was one of the fears that I had when Naismith got sacked. So that'd be very typical Aberdeen, for them to get a new manager and start actually, looking like they know how to play football. So yeah, I'm not feeling too worried just now. I feel like we've still got all the quality, I think, in that squad to really do a number, hopefully.
I think as well what we have to remember is we've got a week to prepare for this game. Hearts will be heading to Azerbaijan maybe tomorrow night, if not early hours of Wednesday, to prepare for their game against Dinamo Minsk, who are absolutely flying in the Belarusian league. Look set to win another league title. That game taking place in Baku as well. Baku is 3 hours ahead of the UK in terms of time, so it's a 5:45 kickoff time in the UK. Add on 3 hours, I'll let you all do the maths. So it'll be a late finish over in Azerbaijan before a flight home. So, getting back into Edinburgh early hours of Friday. We saw ourselves when we played Karabag how much the travel took out of us. I'm just hoping that if they're playing on the same pitch that we played over in Azerbaijan, it's just a shite for them as well. And, maybe there'll be a few more injuries to pick up to that list that's currently growing at Tynecastle as well. How much do you think that European adventure, especially with it being a long trip, will influence the game of the weekend?
I think it will.
In both sides, I guess.
I think it will massively. I mean, even without a long trip, I mean, we seen it with us last season. Being a team that doesn't have, all the sort of money like a Celtic or even Rangers, no matter how they get their money, having the money to throw at a bit of squad depth, you struggle because you just don't have the ability to rotate a £4 million player with a £2 million player, and the money that we would, likes of ourselves, Hearts, Hibs, Kelly, whoever might be in Europe at whatever time, the amount of money that's worth to clubs, you can't really afford not to play your best team. So, you're looking at, the likes of your starting 11 playing over in Azerbaijan, flying back jet lagged, and then really all going to have to come out and play Aberdeen, because we're in that vein of form where anything but your best 11, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. So yeah, I think it will be a massive impact on the game, on top of, like we said, the pressure that's going to come from a really probably quite raucous and packed Pittodrie.
And I think what might benefit us is the intensity that we play at, trying to utilise the tiredness I think that the musical box picks up on as the game goes on. Hearts will probably tire quite badly against us, and that's definitely something we can utilise. I remembered from when we played in Karabag, there was a lot made of the temperature and the humidity, and it's still going to be in the mid-20s and fairly humid in Azerbaijan this week. So again, that heat and humidity could, sap the energy out of Hearts as the game goes on Thursday, and then hopefully has a knock-on effect into Sunday as well.
Well, that's one thing I was going to maybe put to you. It was a slightly, not all too different, but a slightly different way we went around, that opening half hour against Dundee. I was just wondering if that was a sort of precursor, almost a trial of how we might look to play against Hearts. Really try to put them under pressure with getting the ball up quickly and having like Satope being really direct. Because if you've had a long travel, playing in a humid country a couple of days before, I think the last thing you want is like Keskinen bearing down on you at full pelt.
Yeah, but I think we've got to, I think any kind of game at Pittodrie this season, we've got to come out, not necessarily all guns blazing, but we've got to come out on the front foot and look to continue that raucous support that we've started seeing from Pittodrie this season, build on that pre-match atmosphere and keep that going and keep the momentum on our side. And we've done that so effectively so far this season. And I think Sunday is the perfect opportunity to do it as well. And I'm sure there's certainly talk of another pre-match display taking place on Sunday as well, in honour of a certain Gothenburg legend. I'm sure a lot of people can put two and two together and work out what I'm speaking about. Paul Donaldson and Graham Gibb also speaking about the fact that Hearts are flying back into Aberdeen after their trip on Thursday night, kind of similar vein to what Kilmarnock did. I think then going to train at Cove or maybe use ASV, and Kaiser picking up on probably that's the only flying the Hearts are doing right now. In terms of our own team at the weekend, Phil, West Coast Dons spoke about Palaversa needing to start against Hearts because he's absolutely quality. Who does he start in place of? Because I don't think Nielsen or Shinnie get dropped for this weekend.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm sort of the same opinion that I would like to see Palaversa coming back in, but I'm not. I can't quite decide on who would be replacing him. But I think it would be a game where having him with his foot on the ball would suit us quite well. And having his incisive passing ability coming out the midfield, it would really benefit us. Like I say, the note I've got here, I didn't even commit to Palaversa on the note I took. All I said was potential change in the midfield again, because I feel like that's probably going to be a common factor for our season. I think we've got so much quality in there that we're in the lucky position where we can rotate and still bring in quality. But also that we do have, I know that a lot of people are maybe a lot older than me, and it'll just make me sound like I'm being really young and rude. But we have an aging holding midfield duo, albeit they're in their mid-30s.
Careful, I'm 32 now.
So I think that rotation between Nielsen and Shinnie, I think we've said it earlier on the season as well, is going to be quite important in sort of managing their legs a little bit. I could definitely see Palaversa coming in for one of them, but I'm not quite committed to who yet.
Yeah, I love how you've just offended probably half the audience by calling an aging midfield at mid-30.
Yeah, it's okay. I had a whole conversation in work today that I didn't know what a microfiche was, and I had everyone explain what a microfiche was.
I don't know either, so I'm going to say if that
fine.
makes me stay young, then I'll take that. The musical box saying it's not aging, it's mature.
Fine wines.
But again, I probably fall out with that category because I'm certainly not mature for being near my mid-30s. It probably do see change, but I'm looking at the possible wing areas. Again, maybe looking to kind of develop that pace and take advantage of a tired Hearts team. But it's can you drop the likes of Leighton Clarkson and Jamie McGrath for these games without fans being like, what the hell are you doing? Despite us winning.
That's what I'm sort of, I wasn't too sure on whether a winger would be dropped, because it's that sort of thing that we had with Gay, where you've just gone, okay, Keskin's got a goal and assist. Do you really want to drop him after that when his confidence is high? McGrath's been one of, if not our best performing player in terms of creativity. Really hard to merit dropping him. If Gay's out, you're definitely looking at Nisbet starting once again on the back of a goal, and then Clarkson sort of working his way back into the team, and again being that creative number 10. It is really tough, and it comes back to this headache that Jimmy's going to have, that I feel like every week we seem to be adding a new player to the mix for this headache.
Yeah, but it's a pleasant headache to have, and when you sell a striker for millions in the summer like Hearts did. Oh no, sorry, Lawrence Shankland is still at Hearts and is not clearly worth that much. From an Aberdeen point of view, we've not struggled since cashing in on Bojan Miovski, whereas Hearts didn't cash in on Lawrence Shankland and are struggling very much, which is extremely pleasing. Of course, it was Lawrence Shankland though that did manage to stop that rot of defeats at the weekend, grabbing a very last-minute goal against Ross County. They also lost the second coming of the best left back in the world, Gerard Taylor, to an ACL as well. So a few injuries and niggles, and of course Craig Gordon's back in between the sticks as well. So if we've got an aging midfield in the mid-30s, they've got a very old goalkeeper in Craig Gordon, but experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't want to be as bullshit as to immediately write off Hearts, because once again, it might make us targeted men at Pittodrie. Much like
make us targeted men for Hearts podcast, that's for sure.
Well, exactly. But yeah, no, again, like you say, I think Hearts' run of form's not been great. To me, they don't think they've got much quality, and it's a team that really is devoid of confidence.
Yeah.
You can see that with the likes of Shankland. It seems to be the head's immediately down off the bat because he's not getting the same service as he might have got last season. So yeah, I still think we've got the sort of quality, the momentum, and again, like I say, the importance of the crowd as well to really bring that game to Hearts on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think you're right. As funny as it is seeing Hearts down at the bottom of the table, we can never write them off, and these games are always kind of tend to be tight affairs. But for me, I think this Sunday is the first goal, and if we certainly get an early goal, the heads could go down. The crowd will just be immediately up, and let's see how much we can exploit. Hopefully, tired legs as well. On the point of team selection, I think Graham Gibb makes a good point. Uh, he says team selection so far has proved to be spot on. In Jimmy, we trust, and I think so far the fans are continuing to do that. And there's not kind of so many kind of outrage or why is player X or player Y not playing when we see the team lines posted on social media accounts as well. One final thing for the game at the weekend, Colin Gale made this point more, I think, in reference to the Dundee game, but relevant as we, of course, look to continue the winning run. He says opposition teams are now motivated to bring our run to an end. How much do you think that motivation will be there for Hearts? I'm sure their fans would absolutely thrive on being the team that ends the run. But how much do you think, from an Aberdeen point of view, that motivation is there just to keep that run going and keep that feel good factor to set up a huge game after the international break at Parkhead?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Like I was going to say, I think Hearts will come in. There's no better way to try and turn around your fortunes and maybe start to save your season than to beat an unbeaten team away from home in a team that Hearts and Aberdeen do often go back and forth on social media between the fans. It's
Do
a
we?
bit of a rivalry there, I suppose. So they'll be up for it. But no, it's like I say, from a wrestling fans perspective, everybody wants to beat the streak.
Yeah.
From Undertaker, it's the same sort of thing. But like I said, I think the players can take a lot of confidence from the fact that we've gone on this run. And like I said, I think that'll be something they're going to constantly strive to keep going. I know Ruby's sort of alluded to it quite a lot about how big of a motivating factor it is for him to be part of a team that's sort of looking to break records and bring back success. So yeah, like I say, I'm going to keep on mentioning it. But the crowd, it's looking to be a packed out Pittodrie, looking to make it 13 in a row. So don't get much more motivation than that, really, do you?
No, and I think that's the thing as well. If you can't get motivated playing in front of packed stadiums and, you know, bringing joy to the thousands of fans that'll be in attendance, bringing joy to the city as a whole, as Jimmy Thelin likes to speak about, what are you doing? You're in the wrong place. And I think that was kind of some of the thoughts from Nicky Devlin post match I was reading before we jumped on this live tonight, saying that this is the reason why he's here. When they left the team hotel at Malmaison in Dundee, there was crowds of fans outside the hotel wanting to speak to them. There was crowds congratulating them as they boarded the team bus heading back north. So last season they didn't see that scenes for very obvious reasons, Nicky. But he said he finally it's dawned on him the club he's joined and the direction is going in and makes him feel motivated. And I'm sure that's a thought echoed amongst the dressing room. And it, kind of reminded me when I was speaking to Gary Naismith in Germany in the summer about, Gary said to me, he goes, I never realised how big a club Aberdeen was until I started playing for them. And kind of those comments from Nicky Devlin was almost like, I wonder if Nicky Devlin's kind of just dawning on how big a club Aberdeen are now and realising kind of the potential we have as a club when you galvanise a city and a support in the right direction. And let's just hope that huge crowd that we see on Sunday can galvanise the team to get another victory. And we'll keep the bragging rights on social media. Let's hope for a few more weeks yet.
Yeah, and I mean it's maybe a phrase that's slightly overused or occasionally used in the wrong context many times, but it is that whole sort of sleeping giant type analogy of if Aberdeen gets it right from top to bottom, pitch to stand, it's a club with huge potential. So yeah, no, I can see why compared to last season, Nicky's finally sort of realising what could have been.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose in the words of Jimmy Thelin as well, we'll stay humble, but we
No,
absolutely will not stay humble. We'll be
not
gloating
us,
like mad. No,
not
not
you
at
and me,
all.
Glenn.
No,
Exception to the rule.
Yeah, there's got to be a few, doesn't there, Phil? But thanks again for your assistance, and it's been good jumping on alive tonight, and lots of good positive interactions as well. It helps when we're reviewing these victories, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. No, it's been good to get back on the lives. It does make a difference. Like I say, even just the comments coming in and spouting extra talking points. So it is appreciated to have everybody keeping us right, promoting points, doing their bit, maybe even keeping us grounded at times.
Yeah, we definitely need a little bit of that to keep our feet on the floor before we get too carried away. So thank you very much. If you have joined us here live on the YouTube channel, remember to leave a like before you leave the video as well. Subscribe if you're new to the channel as well, or why don't you become a member to the channel as well, like a few you have done already. And of course, if you are listening on audio, it's free to listen, and it's also free to subscribe on there as well. So me and Phil will do our best to stay humble. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.